2021 Afcon was won by the Teranga Lions of Senegal, with this picture forever engraved in the hearts and minds of the Senegalese globally. Now, host Ivory Coast have been pitted against Nigeria, while Senegal will take on Cameroon in the group stage after the draws for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations was made. The tournament was originally scheduled to take place over the summer, but will now be played between the 30th of January and the 11th of February at the start of next year due to concerns over weather. The hosts will go up against three-time African champions Nigeria in Group A, as well as Equatorial Guinea and Guinea-Bissau. The top two sides in each group progress to the last 16, along with 4 of the best third-place teams.
Nigeria.
Special thanks to the president of CAF, Patrice Motsepe, who is bringing in a lot of innovation into CAF, and also the executive committee. If you look at what happened on that day, it was quite eventful, quite historic, and a lot of fanfare. For the first time, they had current players, Hakimi, Sadio Mane, teaming up with some players that just quite of exited the scene, like Mikel Obi, and the ones that have long gone, like Didier Drogba. So it was an admixture of super legends, and so it was quite exciting, something very new, quite novel. And beyond that, the rich Africa heritage, was also exhibited, and I saw Yemi Alade was there. Give and take, it was truly the energy. Everybody felt the energy, and which of course eroded in the draws. And in football, I'm happy African football is coming from a point where we are getting to that proverbial next level. It's not just getting there, but we're getting there announcing a very eminent and prominent presence of African football. So that's exactly what we are very, very proud about. And the truth is, it's a top draw for every group. Because in football in Africa, there are no minutes. You recall Algeria, Ghana, these are very super and proud footballing countries. Were kicked out of the first round in the last Nations Cup, where everybody thought Nigeria was the favorite to win. Lowly rated Tunisia at that tournament came and got us kicked out.
If Nigeria puts in all their efforts, if they have cohesion, if they have the chemistry, if they play like a team, I think it will be sure that Nigeria progresses as either the first or second place team from that group. All things being equal, I think Nigeria will definitely, if they take themselves serious, move past the group phase. Definitely, that's a sure banker.
The host will do everything humanly and materially possible in ensuring that they don't exit in the first round. So are you going to say it's just Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, and Guinea-Bissau? I was there, the Ivorians, when they were about to pick, Saudi was there, we don't want Nigeria, that was the murmuring, But eventually Nigeria came. Like what Mikel said, we're always a favorite. We're not just a proud footballing nation, we have some of the best players in the continent. We have some of the so our players are all visible in their various clubs, doing very well. So who will not be scared of Nigeria?
Now, Manchester United's Andre Onana, Liverpool's Mohamed Salah, and not forgetting Nottingham Forest's Taiwo Awoniyi will be among nearly 50 Premier League stars who could miss major games this season due to the Afcon. All but 2 Premier League sides, Manchester City and Newcastle United, are set to lose players during the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations, which starts in January. And this has drawn animosity from European coaches and clubs. But the question is, why?
Alanga into the penalty area. Alanga still gets it. And Awoniyi tucks it in!
Now, for Premier League coaches and other coaches across the world, having difficulties or hesitations when it comes to releasing players for the African Cup of Nations. So many will complain, so many will say, why is this going on? But we know that when it comes to January is like the most packed schedule when it comes to football, especially in Europe. Now, releasing your key players is going to be a problem. Some teams have like 3-4 African players in their squad. And when it comes to January, you have to release these 3 or 4 players who are integral in your team, who are like making the first 11, and you begin to wonder, how do people expect these teams to thrive? It's understandable that these clubs or their coaches are skeptical about releasing their players for the African Cup of Nations, but it's a two-way thing. They pay a lot of monies, and people expect them to pay their allegiances to their countries, and it is okay. But I think the best way for that to be solved is if the Afcon could just be played in June.
I don't like speaking to this kind of thing, because if it's CONCACAF, if it's CONMEBOL, nobody quarrels. If it's Africa, no. We are not a second-class continent. We are a first-class continent, like every other continent. We have 54 footballing nations. And I believe they should respect, if we say we want to play in January. If we have situations that says we can play in January, they should respect that. We're a first-class continent. And people should respect our vision. People should respect our mission. It is very, very clear. You know, it's not because you are taking one or two of our players from your team. Of course, those players are pivotal to the success of your team. But guess what? If it's UEFA that's doing this, nobody will complain. If it's CONMEBOL that is doing this, nobody will complain. So why do you want to complain? Because it's Africa. This is something that we don't want to take. We must protect our integrity. We must protect our heritage. You know, we want to move it to summer, you know, to give a breather to everybody. I know the Afcon in Morocco very possibly is going to be in summer. But if we decide to do this because of the rains, because of XYZ reason, we have a reason for doing it. And it should be respected. So we are not a peripheral continent. We're a continent that is so very well blessed, both in human and material resources. And I think they should just simply respect what we are doing. And that is the truth.
Nigeria's Victor Osimhen is one of the most prolific strikers globally today. The Napoli striker qualified Nigeria as a top striker with 10 goals from just 5 appearances. Following the win, the Super Eagles sealed their place in Group A with 15 points, scoring 22 goals from just 6 matches. Osimhen's ruthlessness in front of goal has proved the difference for Nigeria time and time again. Nigeria will focus to clinch the title at next year's Afcon. And with talents like Osimhen leading the charge, Nigeria will head into the tournament as one of the favorites.
Kvaratskhelia with the ball in, Osimhen, and still it's them two again.
I think Victor Osimhen has been the pride of Africa in the last 2 years, but this year in particular, he's definitely be on top. I think for sure he probably or definitely win the African Best Player of the Year award. And now coming into this African Cup of Nations, that will be a big boost to him. But as we know, he's currently injured. Last year, Napoli did not want to invite Victor Osimhen for the Afcon, and they did not. Now he's out injured again for 4 to 6 weeks, and that could actually go into the end of November, meaning he may just miss the World Cup qualifiers. Now, with the Napoli side, who is still struggling to get their best form, who's still struggling to be that team they were last season, we want to release him in January, when we know that January is a period where teams have a packed schedule, be it the Champions League, be it Europa, be it their own league games and cup games as well.
He knows Napoli gave him an opportunity to excel. And Napoli should also appreciate the fact that the opportunity they gave him, it did not mess them up. It went beyond their expectations. I recall Osimhen was going to Napoli, and I told some of the club officials that called me, I said, watch out for this guy. He's going to do exactly what Maradona did in 1986. And he has proven it right.
And there it is, Victor Osimhen.
How well Osimhen will perform at the African Cup of Nations might just boil down to how well the team will play. But we're seeing some standout players even in probably average teams. For instance, in 2014, we had James Rodriguez at the World Cup shine against all odds. Even when Colombia were booted out in the quarterfinals, he still won the Golden Boot. So we know how that pans out. Osimhen has to shine against all odds.
Money usually stirs the honestness when it comes to African teams. Usually. it never mixes. Money and football never mixes in Africa. But the real question is why? And can that be addressed once and for all?
If it's the money, they did it like yesterday. That's the truth. Because before they got to this stage, they were qualifiers. And you need to also set that to put the players in a very good mental state that all our indebtedness have been paid. That's why I say if it's the money, they need it like yesterday. It's not just the Afcon qualifiers. What I know we do when I was there was, we play Afcon based on money we get from big sponsorship here and there. Then we also prepare an omnibus budget to the government, including the Afcon qualifiers. So if, for example, we got money from MTN, and MTN for Afcon, we use part of it to service Afcon. That money possibly is to service the under 17, under 20, we take it back there to service us. People don't understand all these things, how these things work. Say, some people come out to say double budget. There's nothing like double budgeting. Once you take money from that, maybe Nigerian breweries, you have to put it back there because you need it to service other national assignments, other operational assignments. So if it's the money, I can say it again and again. You need it like yesterday.
When it comes to African football, salaries, wages, or match bonuses, the unpaid bonuses is always a problem. Some might attribute it to the leadership issues, the administrative part, and some might also attribute it to lack of funds. Now, looking at this lack of funds, I would say African football, to a large extent, has not grown past what it is meant to be. By this time, football is supposed to be a huge revenue generation for most national teams. Now you look at the marketability of these teams, you look at how transparent they are, how accountable their leaders are, and you begin to wonder, will investors just bring out their monies if they know that there's always going to be corruption, allegations, and all of that? So I think when it comes to African football, especially some parts of Africa, leaders need to be held accountable if they're not doing their jobs properly. And more priority needs to be pushed to football itself.
And with the Super Eagles seen as favorites going into this tournament, who will win this 2013 trophy? It is a stake. It is a 2023 edition of the Africa Cup of Nations. And the Super Eagles, without a doubt, will be hoping to light up the tournament in Ivory Coast.
Well, for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, living up to the hype, there's already the mantra, let's do it again. Now, let's do it again might bring pressure for the players. Let's do it again could actually ensure that these players get all the support or the motivation they need coming into the African Cup of Nations. They have what it takes to actually go far. But like I've always said, there's going to be a little bit of problem if we don't see improvement from some positions. For instance, defensive position and the goalkeeping position. But I think it is something that the coach needs to work around. Needs to ensure that probably there might not be an immediate solution to these positions, but he could work around it. For Nigeria, going far, I don't know how far they will go, but I know that at least Nigeria ought to make a quarter-final position at this next African Cup of Nations. I don't think there should be a repeat of what happened last year. This time out, they have some of the best players in Europe. We have Olajuwon performing very well in Nottingham Forest. You have Taiwo Awoniyi, Victor Osimhen. You have Boniface doing well. Even Didis having a resurgence in Leicester City there. We'll see how that pans out for Nigeria, but I think Nigeria ought to get at least the quarterfinals or the semi-finals of this African Cup of Nations. Then anything they achieve, you know that they have overachieved with this particular team.
African football everybody's a favorite. Even though we are rooting for Nigeria, naturally we will root for Nigeria. What I can tell you, it's not a cup of coffee. It's going to be very tough, but I'm happy with the support and the very harmonious relationship between the minister and the Nigerian Football Federation. I've seen the minister as somebody that is really and truly determined, genuinely, to be of assistance to the Nigerian Football Federation. I use the word genuinely because I know what I'm talking about.